Good evening, everybody, and welcome to much delayed Squawk Talk program, also combined with the Socialist Telly political roundup, where we're going to be looking at the latest in the Unite General Secretary contest. A lot of mixed messages, a lot of misleading messages going around in that contest now, and we're going to try and put that straight a little bit and give people a chance to have their say as well. So don't forget, you can comment on the social media feeds very easily on Facebook and on YouTube. And if you're watching on Twitter, then click through to on the pscp.tv link within the tweet, and you will be able to add your comments there. And as and when we can, we'll feed them in through the program. I am joined at the moment by Bonnie Craven, who's also from Socialist Telly, and we will at some point be joined by the noteworthy Cornish Demo, and hopefully by a Unite guest as well through the program, but he's been having some trouble with his tech, and we're just waiting to find out if he's going to be able to join us or not. But welcome, thank you very much for making time to watch us, and hopefully it'll be an informative program. And again, the obligatory, don't forget to follow us on your preferred social media platform, and make sure you hit whatever version of a notification icon is on there, so that you can keep up with all our output. So welcome, and welcome, Bonnie. Thank you for joining us. It's been a busy 2-3 days since the nominations closed on Monday night. So give us your take on what's been going on in summary.
Hi, sorry, I've got a few glitches in the system. I think my Wi-Fi is playing up a bit, so apologies. The first phase of this General Secretary thing, can you hear me? Okay?
Yes.
Are we all right? Good. The first phase for us in this contest for Beckett was going to be difficult, because we needed to identify where the branches were, who were in the branches, and so on, to activate and motivate our base and the supporters of Howard, of which there are thousands upon thousands. But it's been absolutely thrilling watching those nominations pile up, and we've been keeping a regular eye on how many we've got all the way through. And obviously the nominations closed at the start of this week, and the final tallying up of the officially received nominations is has taken place today. So I'm really thrilled to see that there is going to be a full contest between 4 candidates for this position, with so much support from the grassroots members for Howard. It's really thrilling to be on this, and now we get to move on to the next phase of the competition, which is the face-to-face member conversations and meet and greets and so on, to get the message out there for all the wonderful things that Howard will do for our union.
Yes, well, I mean, you said that the final numbers are up, but actually even the final numbers, when the Unite will publish them, they caveated them that they're not final, because there's still some branches that are being verified, and still some verifications that are being double-checked, because there's been a few funny goings on. Or suspected goings on in some of the nominations taking place, and certainly that fits in with what I've heard from around the union, and does put a different light on the various arguments going on at the moment about who's got how many nominations and what it means, etc. It's an interesting idea that, purely based on the number of nominations, some people are arguing that a candidate should drop out, when other candidates obviously have the energy in the campaign, like Howard. And there have been, people need to understand what the nomination process is and how it works, in that generally it's quite tightly controlled by a fairly small number of people who have their hands on the levers of what goes on within their particular branch or workplace. And, there have been numerous reports of meetings taking place without anybody being even asked who they were going to nominate, and then only finding out after the fact that their branch has nominated so-and-so. And then, as a result of that goes into the numbers, and people assume that's some kind of show of support. Really, it's a show of how tightly you control the machine in your particular, stronghold within the union, I guess. And the interesting thing is, Howard's responsibilities haven't included, they include legal, financial, they're political, etc., but they haven't included, controlling large networks of branch reps, for example. And there have been quite a few reports. I had one call just the other day from a woman member who was in a branch, and she said, you know, they normally get, I don't know what it was, 20, 30 people turn up for a meeting. And on the day that the nomination meeting was due to take place, they suddenly were swamped by a large number of reps supporting one particular candidate who they'd never seen before. All claimed eligibility to be in the meeting and vote. They may have been, you know, who knows, and swamped the vote of the regular members who turn up. So for somebody to take that as being a reflection of the actual wishes of the members, you know, the rank and file members within the branch, is stretching it a bit, really. And yet, obviously, people will do that when it's convenient for their argument, and that has been the case. I think the other thing that's really important to remember from nominations is that the nomination, I've seen a few people trying to do some maths and suggest what the numbers in the votes are going to be based on some average from the last contest. But, you know, if you look at the number of nominations when Len McCluskey defeated Gerard Coyne, thank goodness, he was, Len got, I think it was 1,350 something branch nominations, and Coyne got just over 100, I think it was. And the rules were different at that point, so he didn't need more than that to get into the contest. And, but when it came to the vote, it was quite close. It was 59 to 53 or something like that, 1,000 votes each. And, so Coyne's number of votes he got for his, whatever number of branches it was that he actually nominated him, was very different to the number that Len got per branch. And trying to average those, that just makes the whole thing meaningless, really. So, there isn't any great correlation between nominations in this contest and the number of votes that somebody's going to get at the end of the contest. And, again, it's down to who's got an energized campaign. And there does seem to be, and, we're obviously biased in that point because we support Howard. But, the Beckett campaign is the one that's got the energy, got the buzz about it, that's reaching lots of people, that has lots of people saying, I'd never thought about voting in a Unite leadership contest before, but I'm definitely backing Beckett, etc. And that's a key thing, really. I think within the way this contest works, that most people, for their own purposes and their own ends, are ignoring altogether. Very glad we've got Damo here joining us. I'll just bring him in on the conversation. I don't know how much of that you could hear, Damo.
Sorry I'm late, folks. Had a horrible update. Decided it wanted to be done right as I was trying to log in. So it's always the way, isn't it? So otherwise you wouldn't have seen me. And God forbid we don't have that, eh? Howard's on the ballot. Hooray! He's there. We got there. We got the numbers. He got double the numbers that he needed. It's fantastic news. It's brilliant news. All four candidates have apparently made it onto the ballot. They've all made the threshold. They have all won a mandate to stand. And if all four are going to stand, then all four are going to stand. Because that is democracy, folks. It is as simple as that. If you want to win this, it shouldn't matter. It shouldn't be a case of left versus right. It shouldn't be a case of we need somebody to drop out. There's been a lot of talk of people saying, got three left candidates. Two of them need to do the noble thing. They need to do the right thing. Well, how do you decide which one stands then? How do you decide which one stays? Which one got the most nominations? Well, yeah, we had a lot of nominations here, folks. We had over 1,300 branches nominate in this contest, but there's over 3,000 branches nationwide. So how can that possibly be a fair way of measurement? And the threshold was 172. They all made it. If they want to stand, they got every right to stand. And it's there for them now to make their arguments, make their cases, and win. And whoever wins will have won democratically. So get behind whoever you get behind. Vote for whoever you want to vote. Listen to the cases being made. Listen to what they're offering. Listen to what they want to do. And make your own mind up which one you're going to back. We here on Socialist Telly, we've made our mind up. We haven't made any secret of the fact we are backing Howard Beckett here. But it's dishonest and it's not fair, frankly, on any of the candidates to say some have got to stand down because they've all done what they needed to do.
I will just raise a couple of things on that before we move on to Bonnie. But I mean, one thing is people, as you point out, saying that one of the left candidates has got to drop out. Well, who? Because there is only really one left candidate in this race as far as Howard Beckett's supporters are concerned. Yeah. There's only one that's shown any intention of taking on the Labour leadership and trying to drag them kicking and screaming back to the left a bit. There's only, and the idea that, one's going to drop out or something is weird, because I mean, it would be horrific for, you know, just the idea that you're going to ask the one woman candidate in the thing to stand down, and she and her supporters have made it pretty clear she's got no damn intention of stepping out of that contest. So either way, the vote's going to be split, and we saw what happened in the Labour contest last year, where, you know, the machine left, for want of a better term, decided that they knew which candidate should be put to the members. The members didn't like it, but, you know, they made sure that there was only going to be one candidate on the ballot. And lots and lots of people simply didn't vote because they weren't energized by Rebecca Long-Bailey, and they couldn't bring themselves to vote for Keir Starmer, but enough people did that Starmer won, simply because of the lack of energy and lack of enthusiasm in the contest that was generated by the official, for want of a better word, left candidate that was put forward. So if you deprive people of their preferred candidate to vote for, the result of that in recent years, at least, is disaster. And, you know, yet this old mentality still seems to be that, oh, we've got to get one to drop out, because if one drops out, then you know, everybody will back the one that's left. That ain't true. I mean, look, you know, not being Boris Johnson isn't doing Keir Starmer any good at the minute, and you know, not being Gerard Coyne isn't going to be enough for, you know, some left candidate that really wants an accommodation with the Labour establishment rather than to you know, contest it and force it to do its job. So, you know, to my mind, it's a false mentality now and a false dichotomy that people are setting up. And I apologise for cutting across your body. I just want to put those couple of things in before I forgot.
No, I agree entirely with what you said.
Bring your thoughts now, please.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with what both of you have just said. It is clear to all of us here, and to many of the people that have got in touch over social media or any other way they've contacted and connected with the campaign, it's very clear that a huge number of people believe that Howard is the socialist candidate for this contest. Other people lay claim to be socialists, but we've heard that before, as you mentioned, with Keir Starmer. The problem with trade union general secretary elections is quite often they're blighted by really poor turnout. And I fear that if we leave people with a choice, with a binary choice, we're going to see an even lower turnout, which will actually reflect the needs and demands of the majority of the membership, which is a real problem. The other association I wanted to make was, in certain seats, it's suggested politically, in parliamentary seats, sometimes we get approached as Labour Party activists and candidates and officers and what have you. Sometimes we get approached by people from, let's say, the Liberal Democrats or the Green Party, suggesting that we come into an agreement and cherry pick and divvy out somehow seats that could see one or other of those parties win in order to get rid of the Tory MPs. Now, that isn't an answer. It's anti-democratic. It's refusing people the chance to vote for what they actually want and believe they need to have in place to see what the changes they need to have made. So the bottom line is, in this contest, there are 4 candidates through. Various people, for various reasons, have backed different candidates, and now it's got to be up to every single member in Unite the Union to put their mark on the ballot paper for the candidate that they believe will support what they need from our trade union. And it's really as simple as that. And the other thing that I wanted to draw on is the fact that on this argument of how many left candidates are there? Is there 1? Are there 3? Is there 1 right wing? You know, where people are on some sort of political spectrum. But the thing that I've very much noticed throughout the nomination period of this campaign is that the establishment media have time and again gone out to attack the person who they, well, and not just the media, but the Labour Party, the right in the Labour Party have gone out to attack the candidate that they're most afraid of. And every single one of those attacks has been aimed at Howard Beckett. Now, if those people don't like Howard Beckett or they're afraid of him winning, that gives me every reason to believe that he is exactly the person that we need. We saw them do it to Jeremy. We're seeing them do it to Howard Beckett. We're the members. We get to decide, thank you very much, who we want to represent us. And that's the be all and end all.
Yeah, it's history repeating itself to an extent, because we saw them all come out with their knives. They all went after Corbyn, and they're doing the same now with Beckett. He's the anti-establishment candidate, essentially. He's the one that frightens them. He's the one that scares them. He's the one that isn't afraid to speak directly to them, in fact. He does the one thing that Corbyn never did, sadly, and that is challenge them head on, take it to their faces and tell them to their faces just exactly what he thinks of what they're doing and how they're behaving. It's absolutely disgraceful. But I'm going to pick up on your point on turnout, actually, Bonnie. Turnout in these trade union elections, as you say, they're always horribly low. I think the last Unite election was something like 12% turnout. It's crazy how many members do not take part. But this is the most high-profile trade union election I can think of. And the activity across social media has been huge. And that's always an indicator of people becoming engaged and enthused. And when you get Howard Beckett actually not just being talked about, but actually trending on social media and going on and being given opportunities by the mainstream media, although unintentional as they may have been, to platform him, and he's absolutely turned it on it, and he's made a brilliant impact, a fantastic impression. Every time he's been interviewed, doesn't matter who it is, be it Radio 4, be it BBC 2's Newsnight, he's absolutely slammed it. And the more he does that, the more frightened, the more absurd the attacks are going to become. We know where this is going to go. We've been here before. We know things are going to get worse. We know things are going to get ramped up. They will be desperate to kill this guy's campaign off. It's only just beginning now. Now the campaign gets real. It starts today, essentially. And he's been up in Birmingham, I believe, today with the bin men again. Fantastic place to start. Can't imagine a better place for him to start. It was the challenge that really made his name and brought him to public domain, really. And it's a long way to go, and it's all to play for.
I think one other thing that we need.
Sorry, Bonnie, go on.
Sorry. The other thing that we need to mention, as well as him being, in our opinion, the only truly left candidate, he's also the only candidate in this contest that actually has experience within Unite the Union of every aspect of the role of the General Secretary. So he's got the media savvy and the ability and strength and courage to face them down when necessary. He's got the organising capacity because he's gone and stood side by side with members and helped them win victories. He's got the legal side covered. He's been a regional secretary. He's done all of these things. These are all the elements that we need in who will be the finest leader of Unite as a general secretary that we've had, in my opinion.
Yes, I agree on that. I think people underestimate. They assume that the people who are going to vote in this election will be the same ones who voted in 2017. Some will. In some cases it won't be. There's a lot of people in this that may well want to vote now and have never voted before. I think it was a Socialist Telly informal poll that ran that said, how many people have voted in this election for the first time as a Unite member, and it was more than 2/3. I can't remember exactly, 70-something percent, if I remember rightly. So there's plenty of scope there for previously non-engaged voters, and the flip side of that is there's plenty of scope for previously engaged voters or people who would have been engaged to just down tools and say, you know what, it's a stitch up again. I'm not getting the candidate I want to vote for. I'm not voting for I'm not voting for the light version of a centrist light or whatever. I'm going to do really wants to make a difference. So I'm not going to vote at all, and and that's the big danger. And I think that's what people have to need to be cautious of. And I mean, we'll give due kind of mention that there are others who are desperately shouting that somebody must step down and it shouldn't be Steve and all this kind of stuff. And Owen Jones is one of those. And he's managed to, and I'll see if I can bring it up on the screen here. But he managed to upset quite a lot of people by being quite dismissive of any non-English votes and branches. And let's see if I can bring this up on the screen here. So this was Owen's comment earlier on. 80% of Unite's membership are in England, but just 29% of Beckett's nominations are English branches, and they're mostly small community branches. Lots of people admire Beckett on social media, but the candidate with the biggest democratic mandate, so he thinks, is Eve Turner. Now, I will say I personally invited Owen to come on the programme tonight. He declined to appear on the show, said he wasn't able to come on, but did throw in a few additional quips there about why should anybody listen to a blog, and made the accusation that, certainly implied the accusation that Squawk Box or Socialist Telly is funded by Howard Beckett. And I'll just say that, Owen, you may be watching, I don't know how busy you really were tonight. That's bollocks. Never received a penny from Howard Beckett, never received a penny from Unite. And we are not in this because it's in our financial interest to do so. We're in this because Howard Beckett is the candidate that we believe is the one that's going to lead the union, lead it well, and lead it in the right direction. So Howard upset many. Owen managed to upset Scottish, Irish, and Welsh people by focusing on just the English membership, as if that's, you know, most of the English membership didn't bother to vote in the last election either. So, you know, I'd rather have, you know, engaged Scottish and Welsh people than, you know, a few in England who, you know, may or may not bother to vote. But Howard had a lot of support in England as well. So, you know, and, you know, but he also managed to upset the community members because, you know, there must be small community branches and just writing them off. But community is one of the most vibrant sections in the Unite Union. They're certainly not small branches because they cover huge bloody geographies, most of these things. You know, some of the smaller ones in areas of London with a very high population, but, you know, the whole of South Derbyshire, the whole of North Nottinghamshire, whatever else it is in a community branch, there's a significant number of people. They're certainly bigger than, you know, what you might get in a, you know, a workplace branch in a small, you know, electronics workshop or something. So whatever the numbers on that, it's, you know, it's not good to be dismissive of, you know, what is a key section of the union or of, you know, 3 out of the 4 UK nations and the Republic of Ireland at the same time, and you know, and treat them as though their opinion, I think, doesn't matter. And I'll say that, you know, I said at the top of the show that it was unthinkable that anybody would, you know, demand that the one woman in the contest drop out. It's equally unthinkable that anybody should demand that the one candidate who has the overwhelming backing of the Scots, the Irish, the Welsh, the Gibraltars, you know, where I think he just about swept the board, you know, and in Cornwall and other places like that, which might not consider themselves entirely English, are, you know, just to be dismissed and swept under the carpet because, you know, they want somebody who's popular with the English. You know, somebody who's popular across the board will do a lot better and will serve the union a lot better as well. Rant over. I'm just going to bring in Barry, if I can here. He's waiting very patiently in the green room. Hello, Barry. This is Barry Jones, and he is a retired Unite member, if I get it right, Barry, from Cardiff. And we did mention, can you hear us all right, mate? Barry's looking, but not hearing. You can't hear us. You got the sound on your machine. Probably at some point we're going to get Barry there. He's going to tell us about his experience in his branch because his branch nominated. Oh, is that it? Have we got you, Barry?
I can't hear anyone.
Oh, we can hear you. I think you need to turn the sound on your on whatever machine it is you're using. Well, we'll bring Barry in as and when we get a chance, but his story is an interesting one because his branch, he was informed after the fact that his branch had nominated Gerard Coyne. And, you know, I think out of the thousands of members in his branch, only 20 people were informed that any kind of decision on the nomination take place. Sorry, mate, we lost you again now.
I can hear you now.
Oh, it's really good. Yeah, so Barry, tell us what happened in your branch because it wasn't a very satisfactory. Certainly wasn't anything to give anybody a democratic mandate, was it?
Well, it's a branch of 6,000 retired members based in Cardiff. The secretary sends out about 20 letters to people who normally attend. So generally about 5,980 people don't have any contact with the branch. I did try and get a Facebook page set up, but it was a tied vote at the branch, so it didn't happen. Which means that our dear secretary couldn't call a Zoom meeting and couldn't get his resolution through, which I suppose he shot himself in the foot with. Anyway, he wanted to get a nomination through for Coyne, and his way of doing it was sending out about 20 letters to members who normally attend, asking them to reply by telephone or letter about who they would like to nominate. Um, and it seems that Coyne had a majority. But of course, this is totally contrary to the rules of the union. There has to be a meeting, a Zoom meeting or an ordinary meeting, and so the nomination was ruled out of order. I'm just wondering, it makes me wonder how many other branches are performing in a similar and not abiding by the rules. If there's about 20 in Coyne's nomination, he's not nominated.
Yes, quite. I mean, whether or not at this point it's going to be changed when they've made an announcement to the effect that he's on the ballot, I don't know. But it certainly seems to be some question marks over some of the process, and not only with Gerard Coyne as it happens, because we have heard similar stories of some of the other candidates getting nominations either by flooding the branches with reps who work for them, or by votes taking place that are. Let me just mute you 1 second. Barry, because we're getting a bit of feedback coming through there, but so there seems to be question marks over quite a lot of the the numbers. I mean, we've got one comment just come in here now from Katu Ahmed, who says his branch had 300 plus members and it nominated Steve with only 5 members present. So it's not too valid. I mean, those who turn up are the ones who get to vote, but in the United election, every single member will get sent a ballot paper and will have the opportunity to vote. So to decide on the basis of maybe 5%, not even that, of the members who've actually had a say in the nomination so far, and to say, well, because of that, you can or can't be on the ballot, just seems a bit of a disregard for democracy, really. So we have heard from other people who've had similar stories. We've heard in some cases of some candidates telling the campaigns, at least, telling their supporters in the branch to vote for Gerard Coyne because they wanted to get him onto the ballot paper as a means of trying to force Howard Beckett off it. Again, not sure that should be given any particular credence then when it comes down to deciding who's going to run. And I think in the end we've got 4 candidates in the ballot. It would be better if it was an STV kind of preference vote system to give people a better say as to what they actually want to happen, but that's spilt milk. It's not going to happen. If you want Howard Beckett in, and I would suggest that he's the one that we need in, then that is there's only one way to make sure that happens, and that's pull your finger out when your ballot paper comes and get your vote in for it.
Yeah, totally agree. It reminds, actually, this is a very good case, that comment that's come up, and also what's happened in Barry's branch, that this is why you can't take the nominations as a particularly good bellwether for who should stay in and who's got more right and who's got more of a mandate, because these things, to be a quora, a branch only has to have 5 members turn up. I mean, if you've got hundreds or even thousands of members, as long as 5 turn up, it's a valid nomination. And quite often, a lot of these branches do struggle to even be quora. There isn't a great deal of engagement quite often in a lot of these branches. And this isn't just smaller branches or community branches, as Owen Jones alluded to, that are somehow worth less. And I'll have something to say about that in the coming days as a community member myself. But it can be branches of all manners. And people work, the workplace branches, for example, people quite often are working when these meetings happen. Depends on the industry, of course, but they're not always well attended. So it's very, very important that these nominations are treated as the 172 was treated as the marker. That is what the candidates needed to get. But the nominations are just that, a nomination. The voting is what has to matter. And all 4 have managed to get across that threshold. Therefore, all 4 are entitled to be on that ballot and receive votes if they have convinced you that they are the candidate for you. And it really is that simple. Democracy has to be upheld. And that comes down to a vote on the part of every member who cares to take part. And I really hope this is going to be a record-breaking, epic turnout for this election, because it really needs to be, it really deserves to be.
Sorry, I had you on mute there, Barry, because we were getting a bit of feedback. But if you want to come in there, please do.
Yeah, I'm still not happy about the fact that we're letting the nominations go. I would have thought there was a case to argue that letters should be sent out to all these branches saying, did you abide by the rules? Did you operate the procedure properly? And what was the result of the meeting? Now, that's not impossible to do with the number of branches we've got. They're going to send ballot papers out to thousands, hundreds of thousands. So why can't they send a letter out to confirm the procedure was followed? And if we could get at least 20 of coins off the ballot paper, then it makes it easier for the left to fight. The other thing I was thinking of, there's going to, if Howard gets in, there's going to be an assistant secretary's place vacant, and he's going to need an assistant general secretary. And I wondered if Sharon would be interested in that. She might withdraw in favour of Howard if she could get the assistant secretary's job.
Yeah, so I agree with it. It's certainly important to make sure that every nomination is at least follow the rules. It wouldn't surprise me to find that there were cases where that hadn't happened, but again, you know, we're not in charge of the procedures there, so we'll have to see what happens. But you know, the announcement from the union this afternoon did say that some of them were still being checked. Who knows? It's anybody's guess how many, you know, what effect that's going to have on the numbers one way or the other. But again, you know, we saw Howard only credited with 331, I think, his branches, and we know full well he's already well over 350. So, you know, there appears to be some play in the numbers still, and it's, you know, the media was consistently underreporting Howard's performance, and so far he still hasn't been properly given the credit for what he's achieved. And I think it's worth mentioning on that. You know, I mean, there were rivals or people who didn't want to see Howard in this contest, who didn't think he was going to even hit the 172 branches, as it turned out in the end, to get his name on the ballot paper. This phase of the contest is not considered to be the one, or was not considered to be the one, where Howard was, you know, had a lot of strength, and the sheer grassroots energy of the campaign has blasted him through there to, you know, 350 plus, could end up with 400 nominations by the time they all come in. And you know, so he's two and well over 2 times the number of nominations required. If he's done this well in the phase of the contest where they think or thought that he wasn't going to get anywhere, it's not surprising that they want to nobble him out of the contest now, because they'll be very worried about how well he's going to do in the next phase as well.
I think they can get away with nobbling him possibly more easier than anyone else, because the other candidates, to my knowledge, have all had party machinery behind them to support them and all the rest of it. Howard Beckett's campaign, from beginning to where we are now, has been entirely grassroots driven. His entire team is voluntary. Nobody's getting paid to help him at all. Socialist Telly certainly is not getting paid. We've never taken a penny from anybody for anything. Myself and Steve run our own media bits and bobs, and some people support us as individuals. But Socialist Telly itself as an entity has never taken money from anybody and never will, because that completely defeats the object of the exercise of why we're here, to spell it out as it is without being beholden to anybody or anything. So what you see is what you get, and we will give you the God's honest truth as we see it. And it really is as simple as that. But Howard Beckett's campaign has been completely grassroots driven. We've seen this before as well. We know how well grassroots can drive something when they're enthused, when they're engaged, when they're inspired. Goodness me, the man is doing that, isn't he? They should be well afraid of him for this stage of the game, because this is the stage of the game they hoped he wouldn't reach. But he's there. It's a game on.
We've seen what happens then, and we've seen what happens when you either ignore the grassroots or assume that they'll get on board because they've got nothing better, you know, nobody else to go for or whatever. And, you know, look at what's happening. The Keir Starmer disaster that continues to unfold in front of us, of the Labour leadership, I use that word with hesitation, is, you know, pretty much entirely down in my mind. And, you know, to the fact, because we were warning people, you know, before the ballots even went out, before the contest even got underway, we're saying, if you deny people, you know, a candidate they are inspired by and can believe in on that ballot paper, it will be a disaster. And, you know, there were various kind of backroom deals and whatever to make sure that Rebecca Long-Bailey was the only candidate put forward. She didn't inspire that. And, you know, I think she's a good person, good MP, etc. But she didn't get, you know, the people didn't believe that much that they could get behind her and that she offered a real chance of something. And, as a result, they stayed home. And, there were enough who were fooled by Keir Starmer's claims, his 10 claims that what he was going to do, all of which were discarded almost the instant he got in. Probably at the same time that he decided he was, after the result, he was going to announce who his donors had been. He also decided he was going to bin his 10 pledges. And, they've never really seen the light of day again since then. So, that's what happens when you just assume. I mean, it's this Mendelssohn mindset, really. He said, well, you don't need to worry about the working class because where else are they going to go? And it's almost like, well, we don't need to do what the grassroots think because they're going to get behind us anyway. What else can they do? Well, they can stay on, and that's the, that happened. And we saw the danger of that. We also saw when the kind of, in the unison election when there were two candidates and the one that was more favoured by the kind of establishment, if you like, wouldn't drop out, even though all the signs were that Paul Holmes was going to be far more popular. And that, that did split the vote, but that split the vote because they took, they got in the way of the favoured candidate. They got between the membership and the enthusiasts and the activists and the candidate that they really believed in and just assumed they'd back somebody that, that was a little bit more mainstream, So that's those things are very, very dangerous, and it's not the same situation now that it maybe was for the 20 years before that, where people could, pull a few strings and arrange a few things, and everybody would just get into line. But let's not look at those kind of sour aspects for too much, because it is what it is. But the fact is that Beckett's campaign has absolutely smoked everybody else in the contest in terms of its energy, in terms of the creativity, in terms of the level of, just sheer energy and kind of enthusiasm coming up through people, and lots of people, as I think both you and Demo mentioned as well, you're saying, I'm joining the union. It might be too late for me to vote for him, but I'm joining because I want to be in a union that Howard Beckett might lead. So people who write off that kind of impact, I think, do so at the peril, really.
I think you're right, Steve, but I also think cases like we've heard from Barry's branch and other branches around the regions and nations, and comments from commentators such as Owen Jones, I think we should really thank them, because if anything's going to motivate people to put their mark on the box when their ballot comes through their letterbox, it's going to be seeking justice. They are going to have motivated even more people to support Howard Beckett, because the members aren't silly. We can see what's happening. We can see what kind of games are being played here. The people in the regions and the nations will be really fed up by that dismissing of them by Owen Jones, who has a large platform. And all of the community members will feel that they've been dismissed by that one tweet and the actions of other commentators in all of this. And it's just going to galvanise the support for Howard Beckett through this contest. So we should say thank you, really. We've seen every time that the establishment have attacked Howard Beckett, more people have signed up to support the campaign, more people are following the social media, and more people are on board actually with everything that Howard Beckett's offering if he gets the position of General Secretary of Unite.
Yeah.
Interesting comment here from David Warwick. I've seen similar from a few other people on social media today as well. So every member should ask themselves who they'd want beside them on a picket line or a disciplinary hearing, and it's Beckett. And I think that's clearly the case. I mean, we had John Maguire on, I think it was from Northern Ireland, and he was telling us about what happened with the Ford Vistian workers who some have been were being made redundant, some were working there. There was pensioners as well, and they all stood to lose tens of thousands of pounds each with the company, filing for bankruptcy or whatever, and their pensions were under threat. And the only person who was prepared to take on that fight, even within Unite, was Howard, and he fought that and ended up saving their money for them and putting them in a situation where those who were already retired could live a comfortable retirement. Those who weren't retired yet were going to keep what they'd worked for. And, he had that kind of grit to go in there and wrestle bears if necessary in order to get the result for the members. And then we saw today when, there was two Labour council-driven disputes in Birmingham City Council, where right-wing Labour, again, God help us, deciding it was a good idea to fire and rehire some of the poorest paid members of their workforce, so that because they thought they could twist their arm and force them into taking a pay cut. And I think it was from 19,000 down to about 14,000, which is just ridiculous for somebody who's lugging everybody else's trash around, And Howard went in and pulled every string: the political, the legal, the PR, and obviously the industrial frontline action of picket lines, etc. And was just determined that he wasn't going to lose that fight. Went in there and won that one. And then when the council tried to do shaft the workforce a year and a half later in something else, went in there, beat them again. And when Howard got down on the to meet those guys today, or up to meet them, I don't know whether he was in London or what, they were cheering for Beckett, and singing "We Love You, Howard" and all this kind of stuff. And that doesn't come cheap. That kind of determination and integrity and fight and everything else is not easily found. And they obviously feel they found it in Howard. Similarly, we've seen other kind of victories in, I think it was Thurrock in the Bins, similar situation. We've seen the Ineos disputes up in Scotland. And those guys, there's a reason why there's so many members in Scotland, for example, are backing Howard Beckett, because he's won for them so many times. And they were again in Coventry. We saw a similar one. Somebody commented on last week's show where they said, we looked dead in the water in Coventry, and then Howard came in and saved us and saved the day for us. So he's got our solidarity. That word on that gets around, and his supporters are making sure it does. I think Barry's trying to come in here again. Barry, were you trying to say something there, mate?
Steve, I can't understand what you're saying, Steve. I'm getting a tremendous amount of feedback. I can understand other people. But
so it might be just the connection. I think, if you don't mind, then if you want to tip off, if you're having tech problems, etc., then feel free.
No, it's not me. I can hear other people. Yours is just crackly. I don't know if anyone else has got that.
Oh, are you guys hearing me all right?
We can hear you, Steve.
Yeah, fine.
Yeah, might be a bit of bandwidth issue or something, Barry.
It's just with you, it's crackly. I haven't understood what you said.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything in the comments from others saying that they're having issues with the sound. So I'll tell you what, if you want to stay on, mate, then you're very welcome to. But if you need to get going,
I can't understand what you're saying. So
okay, Barry. Thank you for coming on and telling us about your situation. Sorry, I took you off the stream there just as you were about to say something. I think Barry's got frozen. I think he's having some bandwidth issues there. We'll cut our losses on that one, but it was interesting.
Having a grassroots activist on with us as well, though, wasn't it? Really good to see him and hear from him.
Yeah,
it was, and it does kind of give confirmation, anecdotal, if nothing else, to the some of the stories that are circulating at the moment about the issues at some of the nominations. Not that that's necessarily going to change anything at this point, but it certainly shows why people should be getting a huge pinch of salt with the to eat with any if they're going to swallow any stories about how many nominations that one person or another's got in the campaign that means that they should be the candidate.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the only vote you can really guarantee that is a safe one is the one that you cast yourself on your own ballot paper. The nominations, it goes through a very independent verification process for a very good reason, and they are still verifying some of them. Who knows? There may be issues connected with Barry's branch. I don't know. There's certainly some others. Maybe it could just be the paperwork's got lost on the back of the sofa, I guess. Or it could be anything really. There are reasons why sometimes it takes a little bit longer, and that is what this process is in place to sort out. But it does sound like there's been some shenanigans from what Barry was saying about what's gone on in his branch, and absolutely, I hope that is being investigated to make sure everything is above board and everything's been done to the letter of the rule book.
The other thing that's worth mentioning, of course, because we covered this right at the beginning of the campaign, is the fact that Unite at the moment doesn't publish on its member site and it gives you the branch details, doesn't give you any contact details for the branch secretary of your branch in all cases that we could find. And that would, it suggests that it's quite likely that, if there were people, if you're a Steve Turner or Sharon Graham supporter or whatever, and you're plugged right into your workplace branch, etc., you know who the branch secretary is, you know how to organise a meeting, you know who's who in that branch, and can make sure that the people you want to turn up, etc. If you are, a member in a branch that is a geographical or a sector branch or whatever, and you don't know everybody who's there, and you don't know who the secretary is, it wasn't very easy to find out. So there may well have been a lot of people as well who would have loved to hold a meeting and may have voted for any candidate, but perhaps for Howard, and were unable to vote, so were essentially deprived of a voice in this whole process because of kind of organisational failings, if you like, in terms of how the member website is set up. So, I'm not saying it's any massive impact on the result one way or the other. Certainly worth bearing in mind, though, and again, should just add a note of caution when people start bandying about figures. And we know for a fact Howard got his 353, and probably more than that by now, because those results were getting communicated in by the members who were at the meetings themselves, and that was done almost in spite of the the system and the process rather than facilitated by it. So. What else? I mean, you guys, I think, have seen some very positive stories and comments from people on the various social media platforms. What do you think in terms of the other stuff? What is it about Howard that has got people so energized and would feel they were so deprived of if he wasn't there for them to vote for?
Do you want to go first, Barney?
I was just going to say the same to you. Go on, you go, Damo.
He is done in social media, quite frankly, to the point that people don't even necessarily know the names of some of his competitors. There's been a couple of polls popped up saying how many of them do you actually know, and then you've had other people, some quite high-profile people, in fact, completely misnaming some of them, which has tickled us no end. But it is the simple fact of the matter. If anybody knows any candidate in this contest right now, it's Howard Beckett. It's for good reason, because he's there. He's across social media. He's got people putting stuff out for him. He's got all these regional or localized accounts, Beckett supporting accounts that are popping up all over the place. More and more of these seem to be popping up every day. And they're all just pushing out the message, the manifesto, the pledges, the policies, and it's what people are coming across. Anybody who is paying any attention to this Unite election is the first thing they're going to see on their feed is going to be something to do with Howard Beckett's campaign. And at the moment, I don't see another candidate holding a candle to him in that respect. And what he's saying is people are engaging with it. Who doesn't want powers devolved to the regions and in their workplaces, and to streamline the whole system? And of course, we're quite excited about the prospect of Unite TV, because we think it's way past time that the establishment news media was challenged, and we've got this other Fox News-esque sort of station starting very shortly. And it would be wonderful if the trade union movement put one up for the left to combat that. And everybody's got a favourite policy. I'm sure you've got a few there, Bonnie.
I really do. I mean, I've campaigned for the NHS forever, and Howard is actually the first person in the political world, within our movement especially, to have actually made the case to end the privatisation of the NHS and what have you. But what we're seeing now, we're in a situation where we've had 11 years of Tory imposed austerity. We've had 15 months of dealing with the pandemic. We've had 13 months of person heading up the Labour Party, I won't say leading, but heading up, that's point blank refused to defend working class people, that's actually sent our children and our families in risk by insisting that we had children back at school, no ifs nor buts. And yet now we're in a situation where even the government are acknowledging that children are vectors of transmission. They're talking about having to roll out vaccinations for the kids because guess what? They bring the diseases, the virus home to their communities and to their families. We've got this context of people's hopes and people's ambitions and people's downright needs to live in society, in a functioning society. It's been disregarded by everybody else. I will say disregarded by the Tories, disregarded by those on the front bench of the Labour Party, and disregarded by every other candidate in this General Secretary election. Howard is standing firm and clear up for the working class, which is who we need to lead Unite the Union, the biggest union, I believe, in this country, if not the biggest, the second biggest in this country. And mark my words, if he wins this election, we've already seen people coming on board, joining the union. Unite the Union will be at its biggest size ever, in my view, when Howard wins this at the end of this summer.
I'm getting outranted here tonight. This is brilliant. Well done, Bonnie. That was fantastic. The one thing that went through my mind while you were saying all that was when you came on to Keir Starmer is the fact that you got a candidate that said, "I'll have a quiet word in Starmer's ear," and then you've got Howard who will stand there and say it to his face and does do so, at every NEC meeting, because he's there faced off with Starmer and whoever else on the NEC that is supporting the whatever he's actually doing in his position as alleged leader of the party, and whatever direction he's pretending to take us in, and puts up with none of it. He doesn't put up with any of it, and he says it comes out on Twitter all the time. The way his Twitter feed works, how it comes across, his tweets, is how he speaks. It's fantastic. What you see is what you get, and Starmer doesn't want to see this. He doesn't want to get this. He's terrified of it. He'd rather have somebody have a quiet word in his ear and pretend he hadn't heard them, I suspect. But Howard won't be that person.
Well, out of his NHS policies, and I was interested to see that he put out an NHS video this afternoon. Was it this afternoon or was it last night? But that went through the roof in terms of people viewing it and the comments on it and stuff as well. Stuff like having free membership for student nurses and student paramedics to get them, kind of embedded and ingrained into the union life and union mentality straight away in their careers. I think is fantastic. He's got some fantastic policies for women. He's very much into. And I can't remember where already, but somebody was talking about the difference between being non-racist and being anti-racist, being non-sexist and being anti-sexist, being and anti-fascist and so on. And Howard's definitely in that kind of anti-camp where he's ready and already is and is ready to do more in terms of taking concrete steps to get rid of those issues, to eliminate them out of our conversations, out of our life, and stick up for the people who are being discriminated against or being disadvantaged, etc. And I think that's I think there's certainly none out of the 3/4 of the candidates who are got any kind of issues in terms of being racist or sexist or whatever. But I think anti-racist, maybe so, but certainly not on the same level with Howard. I haven't seen them speaking at the Black Lives Matter protests. I haven't seen them out on the streets with with movements as well as on picket lines with workers, etc. And again, I think as well, it's worth pointing out that all of the other candidates to some extent are talking about this idea of the back to the workplace, as though Unite's not in the workplace already. But Unite is a unique union in that it has a huge section for people who are not in the workplace. So what does that say about them? Yeah. If you're talking about you just want to get back to the workplace, well, what about the people who are working in the community for on behalf of the union and in the union on behalf of the community? Do they not count because they're not checking in, punching the clock every morning or whatever the electronic equivalent is? Certainly, you would, there's a danger that that's the message from the campaign slogans or whatever, or all of the other candidates in the process.
Yeah, I mean, it brings you back a little bit to that Owen Jones tweet that you put up earlier on. It's that same sort of messaging, actually. It's basically, back to the workplace, but not all of us do work. The community membership is huge. Howard Beckett wants to bring the community membership and the industrial memberships together to support each other and work together. I mean, how fantastic would it be, and how much of a morale boost would it be for any industrial action that's taking place to have a load of people turn up who don't actually work there to stand on the picket line with them, support them, make a show of force, get some banners up, answer them, let's do it. But they're not talking about the community membership. It's back to the workplace, and it comes into this side of, oh well, we want to get back to the workplace. We don't want to be political either. But trade unions are political. They set up a political party, for heaven's sake. You can't ignore this. Labour only exists because trade unions are political, and that's not going to change. That can't change. You might have a seat at that Labour Party NEC. Are you telling me that if you don't want the trade union to be political, you're going to turn that seat down in future? You're going to do for the Labour Party? What are you going to do? Of course you're not going to do that. You're still going to be political. You just don't want to talk about it. You think people aren't interested in that. Well, I'm a community member. We're amongst the most politically active, most politically engaged members there are. We're the ones most likely, in fact, to turn out and vote in this election, I would say. So what are you saying to us? Not very much. You're quite dismissive. We don't count. We're not valued as much. I don't know. That's the impression we're getting. I'm sure I can't be the only person that's feeling like that. And it's all rather ableist, actually. We're talking in this language of anti-racism and things like that. Ableism is in there too, and that's not on. That's not good at all. A great many community members are long-term sick or disabled or carers like myself. And we have a role to play in society too. We play our part, and don't for one moment belittle the contributions that we do make to society.
I'm just Bonnie, you talk for a second. I'm just trying to find a particular video I saw which showed the number of maps, number of community branches that he's had voting for him, because it's a substantial. I don't know how many branches exactly there are, but if you look at the population on the map of branches that have voted for him and how much of the geography of all of the nations that it covers, it's quite significant. And again, right, these are small branches, I'm afraid, as we saw Owen Jones doing, just doesn't cut it, because these branches are huge geographical branches in some cases, and must have a lot more members than many workplaces. So Bonnie, talk for a second. I'll just find this.
Yeah, it's all right. I'll fill the airtime. It's cool. I mean, I think Damo's absolutely right there about the value and importance of community branches. When we're fighting to keep our hospitals open, we want to stand side by side with the staff that are working in those hospitals and our members of Unite the Union, and with the people that live in the community that will be affected by the removal of that service. So it's the old-fashioned trade union idea of solidarity. We all live in this society. We all need things to be changed for the better. We can all do this through Unite the Union. Let's stick together and make it happen, because otherwise we'll be begging on our knees on our own. And that is not the principle behind trade unionism. It's about collectivism. It's about working together as a body of people. And the more people there are in that body, the louder your voice will be, and harder it will be for the establishment to disregard what you're demanding.
Yeah. I found it, so let's see. And this is 3 days old, so it's already well out of date, because we know there were more branches added since then. So this is already out of date, but still quite impressive. I don't know if it's the same for everybody here, but the map seems to be behind the box. You can see it filling in. So I think we saw pretty much every community branch in London. We saw, and interesting, because there's Owen Jones upsetting all of the Scots Irish, etc., by writing off their significance in this contest in the nominations phase. But when it comes to Unite Community, there were huge numbers of branches, more in England, I think, than anywhere else, actually. So those guys who recognise what's needed and recognise the the political aspect of things, not just the workplace stuff, were certainly backing Beckett in a massive way on that one. And I think there's 20,000 members or something in the Unite community. When you've got the levels of turnout that we've seen in previous elections, that is significant constituency within that union, and a fair number of those who will back Beckett, and there's no saying that they'll back anybody else.
They are huge branches. I'm in Cornwall Community Branch. Cornwall, as in the entire county, Cornwall. That's not a small branch. I mean, and a great many community branches are county-wide as well. I just smacks that Owen Jones doesn't have a sodding clue what the hell he's talking about, and it is angering me. It really did tick me off when I saw that earlier, because I'm thinking, well, it's what I said before in my comment a minute ago. We're valued less. You're basically telling me I'm not as important, just as you're telling the Scottish and the Welsh and the Irish, who have voted heavily for Howard Beckett, that they somehow don't matter as much as the English, because apparently 80% of the members, according to you, are English. Well, I don't know if that's true or not. I want to find out. I want to know. Are all these branches English, or from what we've been seeing from Howard Beckett's campaign, there's a heck of a lot of branches in Scotland, actually. So it really was an offensive, small-minded tweet. But we move on. We're going to be better than that. We're not like that. We're better than that here. We're for a left-wing journalist.
Well, I mean, I think we've certainly had no problem filling our hour. We're just about at the end of our time. But I think, from my point of view, the thing to end on, the note to end on, is the fact that there has been an overwhelming amount of comment. While we've seen all the establishment mouthpieces and the blue tickers and all the other people trying desperately to find some way to write Howard Beckett out of this contest, the actual, Grassroots Unite members have been coming out and making huge comments about the fact that, for them, it's Howard or bust, basically. He's the one they want in it. He's the one that stands for something. He's the one that stands up for something, and he's prepared to take on anybody in order to get what's right for the, for the members and for society at large. Whether that person wears a red rosette or a blue one or none whatsoever. And, that's certainly why we are backing him. And certainly why we are delighted that he's staying in this contest, and believe that, what's been before isn't the model for what can happen. We saw when, people saying that Jeremy Corbyn couldn't get elected as the Labour leader. Then he did. We saw in 2017 when they said, it's going to be a disaster. And then, he came within a whisker of Downing Street and smashed Theresa May's majority. That all gets written out of the history books now by the people who are currently trying to rewrite it. But, the reality is, if you give people something that they believe in, and they believe that you're going to stand up for it and you mean it, then the fireworks go off. And, we're expecting that to happen in this Unite contest exactly the same, because Howard Beckett is the real deal, and is certainly the person that Unite needs, and that, the country needs to be running Unite as well.
But
last couple of comments before we wind up for the evening and let people get on with their stuff.
Go on, Damo.
Well, now, just as it was with Corbyn back then, it's the grassroots members, it's ordinary members, the likes of which have been commenting fantastically during this show today, that are going to keep Howard Beckett in this contest and are going to be the ones to get him over the line, because everybody and their dog in the media and in the upper echelons of Unite itself, as well as the Labour Party front bench, are going to want him gone, and they're going to want to get him out, and they're going to want to do it any way they can. The only people that are going to keep him in this contest and to get him over that line is the grassroots. It's the likes of you and I, folks. We are his media. We are his campaign. There is no one else behind it. There is no money. There's no big backers. It's grassroots from start to finish. And if we're going to get him over that finish line first, it'll be the grassroots that do it. So get ready for a hell of a fight, folks, because that's what it's going to take.
I do hope the old guard of the Labour Party circa 1997 do carry on trying to attack Howard, and I do hope the establishment media want to carry on running ridiculous, trumped-up stories against Howard, because every time they do that, Howard is able to prove why he is such a good candidate and is worthy of running our union, Unite the Union. It also boosts the numbers of people that are volunteering on this campaign. It boosts the number of people that are joining Unite the Union, and it shows people throughout our movement what you can really achieve if you stand up for what's right.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's a good note to end on. So I'll thank everybody for those who, if you've watched right through, well done. Thank you. If you've dipped in and out, thank you. Thank you for that as well. Do watch, do share this, and make sure, again, you know, hit the notification icons and the subscribe buttons and whatever else on the on your preferred social media channel. Make sure you keep up what's going on, and do give the excellent Cornish Demo and Bonnie Craven. Bonnie, what's your Twitter handle?
At Bonnie Craven.
At Bonnie Craven, a follow. Make sure that you see what they're up to, because it's always good. And yeah,
look out for the regional Beckett campaign Twitter accounts as well, please.
Great
Follow
point.
those
Yes.
and give them a share.
Yeah, pretty much all the regions have got their own specific one. So if you want to keep up with what's going on there near where you live, then that's a great idea. And yeah, we'll close off with "Feck it, back Beckett." I mean, that's the message, and definitely what we need to be going on. See you all very shortly. We may be back this weekend with a more general political roundup as well, and keep an eye out, as time allows, for the usual Socialist Telly output to keep coming. Good night. God bless everybody. Take care.